from June, July of 2015 till February of 2016, we had more or less 900,000 people arriving in Athens from the islands, and most of them, taking the direction towards the border. But many people were stranded in Athens. For 2 or 3 months, we had people living in tents in parks of the city, in central squares like Platia Victoria's Victoria Square in Athens. So we had to move very quickly, and we had to find a way, to work together with the government.
In the summer of 2015, more than 850,000 refugees crossed into Greece, many through the Aegean Islands, with Athens as their first major stop. Suddenly, the city became a front line of Europe's refugee crisis. Today, I am interviewing Georgios Kaminis, who was mayor of Athens from 2011 to 2019. A constitutional law scholar, Greece's first national ombudsman, and a seasoned policymaker, Mr. Kaminis offers a unique insider perspective on what it means to manage a city during a migration emergency. We discuss how Athens responded to the sudden influx of asylum seekers, the pressure on housing and informal labor markets, security problems, and the strain on city services. Kaminis reflects on the institutional responses he helped build, the challenges he faced, and the hard-won lessons that still resonate across Europe today. This is a conversation about what urban leadership looks like in a global crisis. So, Mr. Kaminis, thank you very much for taking part in this interview.
You're welcome. I'm very pleased.
How did you first encounter the topic of immigration in your career?
Of immigration from the point of view of, human rights, because I'm professor of constitutional law. So, and that was my first approach, but mainly as deputy ombudsman, and from 2003 as the national ombudsman. And after that, as mayor of Athens, for the period that you have already mentioned. And after that, as an MP of the Socialist Party of PASOK, and the immigration and refugee issues were under my, let's say, competence, my remit.
So, as you have just said, the immigration issue has been permanent, I understand, across your intellectual and political career.
Yes, among other things, yes.
Okay. And let's now zoom in on the period when you were a mayor of Athens and when massive influxes started to arrive in the spring and summer 2015. So, what were the main challenges that Athens faced in dealing with the sudden arrival of asylum seekers at that time?
Well, great problems already existed in the city.
Yes.
Before the summer of 2015.
Okay.
We had large numbers of people who were undocumented.
Okay.
And already in the Christmas, on December 2014, we had 600 Syrian refugees.
600?
Families, 600 people from Syria.
Syrian refugees. Yeah.
Arriving in Athens, and they were accompanied by some NGOs, by activists, and they lived for many days in Syntagma Square, asking for asylum. They were petitioners. So that was, let's say, the first impression.
That was in 2014?
2014, December.
At the end of 2014?
At the end of 2014, and we started realizing that things had changed because of Syria mainly, and that we should expect biggest numbers the next months. So, in a certain way, it was not a surprise what happened during the summer of 2015. And the first main problem was how to, we had so many thousands of people arriving totally from July of 2015 till February of 2016. We had more or less 900,000 people arriving in Athens from the islands, and most of them, taking the direction towards the border. But many people were stranded in Athens. So we had to deal with this issue, and the first thing we had to do was to offer, to create a refugee camp. So it was the first refugee camp that was created in the region of Attica, in Eleonas.
Ilionis.
Yes, before that, for 2 or 3 months, we had people living in tents in parks of the city, in central squares like Platia Victoria's Victoria Square in Athens. So we had to move very quickly, and we had to find a way, to work together with the government. So this piece of land that we offered was municipal, or it belonged to the municipality, and there was created the first refugee camp.
I see. So I understand the first and main issue you encountered was about the very presence of those people in the urban space.
Yes, it was the presence.
Their presence, yes.
The presence. Second was that, the refugee camp in Eleonas was too small, and we worked together closely now with the High Commissioner for Refugees, the representatives here
Of UNHCR, yeah.
in Athens, and we participated in a housing program that was financed by the European Union, who gave the money to the UNHCR, and UNHCR worked together with NGOs and with the city of Athens. And what we did, we were finding apartments in Athens. At the time, many apartments, because of the economic crisis, were empty. So we had a program where we, if I remember well, we rented at the time some 100 apartments in Athens, housing refugees, families.
So you were paying the landlords a
Not
rent?
us, not us. We were the managers, but they were paid by the UNHCR.
The UNHCR was paying the rent to landlords for those people
Yes,
temporarily, I suppose.
temporarily, yes.
For how long?
I don't remember. The name of the program was Estia.
Estia.
Estia. So it was a very, very good program. It worked very, very well, because at the same time, we offered vouchers and coupons to those people. So in a certain way, it was very good for the neighborhood there, because they were shopping and things like that. At the time, it was good for the city of Athens, because it was the time of the economic crisis.
And how long did those people remain in those housing that were rented? I mean, what was the... I understand many would have probably liked to stay for a long time if the rent was paid.
Yes.
What was the incentive
I don't
to stop
remember
it?
very well, but maybe some families stood there for 2 years,
Up to 2 years.
if I remember well.
Okay.
And well, this program, Estia, It was active till 2020. It was a big program. It was very good program.
So for up to 5 years, asylum seekers, migrants receive funding from UNHCR so that they could be accommodated and get some expenses reimbursed.
Yes, yes. And the second thing that the municipality, we did three things. The second thing was that we created the hub for migration and refugee issues. We created in the Mezonos Street in Athens, near Omonia, in the neighborhood of Agios Pavlos. And there we had, this hub. We had the city of Athens. We created a vice mayor for refugee and migration issues. It was the first time we had a vice mayor like that in the whole of Greece. And we had more or less 60, 70 NGOs and Greek public agencies. All of them working together, creating common programs. It was, I think, a great experience, and it helped a lot, to collect information, what was going around in the city, to exchange experiences, exchange good practices. And it worked also very well, this hub. And the third was a program, a European program, curing the limbo. Curing the limbo.
Curing the limbo.
The limbo, it was a program, a European program, and that we went through a contest. It was other cities participated also, but our proposition was a good one. So we had together, the University of Athens giving courses of Greek language to refugees. We had the refugees participating, and we had the city of Athens, trying to find apartments. And at the same time, there was an incentive for those refugees to learn Greek and enter into an apartment. So these were the three main pillars of what we did in Athens. And of course, we continued, through our social structures. We did many things for refugees and asylum seekers and migrants.
I see. So the three pillars were this housing program paid by the EU and managed by UNHCR. The second one was this
Curing the limbo,
which was devoted to training the refugees, providing classes and so on.
Yes, and at the same time housing them.
In parallel to the first one. And the third one was...
No, the third one is the Oleonas camp.
The camp. Okay. For those who could not find accommodation in the city.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the same time, we created a network with other cities in Greece where we exchanged practices and experiences. Mostly the city of Athens had to not to teach, but to offer its own experience, because we were already very experienced in those issues, to other cities with more or less mayors who were liberal mayors, were voted by the left in Livadia, in Heraklion, in some cities of Crete, were eager, open on receiving refugees in their cities.
Mm-hmm.
So we created this network with the other cities, and at the same time, we were very, very active on the European level.
Mm-hmm.
with other cities participating in networks of the European Union. At the time, the city of Athens, I can tell you, was on the, how to call it, on the edge, the cutting edge of many, many practices concerning, refugees and migration issues.
Okay, so you think that these programs helped smooth out the arrival of these people? That is, um, they would find accommodation more easily, uh, be able to buy food more easily, get some training, for instance, in Greek more easily. And I understand that the idea is to intervene when there is a massive influx, but at some point the programs need to phase out, no?
Oh,
Uh,
yes,
So,
of
how
course.
did you see the phasing out part of these programs? Were those people ready to move on, to find their own accommodation, which will no longer be paid by the EU? And
To tell you the truth, I don't have a very clear picture
okay,
because as it was happening before, I'm very sorry to say that people had to get integrated by their own forces. The Greek state was not very efficient, even not very eager to integrate refugees and migrants, even though now that there is this question of lack of labor force in Greece, so we have every interest to integrate those people the soonest possible, where there was always a policy of non-integration. So I don't think that many things, important things happened afterwards. But at the time, during those years, we created a structure in the municipality of Athens, 60 people, a pool of young people forming teams of 3 persons, every 3 persons having under their responsibility 10 apartments, managing the apartments, and taking care of the refugees, accompanying them to hospitals, solving problems with the
these were
neighborhood.
volunteers.
Not volunteers, paid
Oh,
by the municipality of Athens
okay.
and also paid by the UNHCR.
I see.
So it was very important because at the same time, during those years, we created a pool of many people that became experts on those issues.
I see. But you don't have a clear picture of how these programs were phased out because it occurred after
No,
you left.
they were present. They were still active. Those projects
When you left.
when I left the municipality in 2019. So I don't know very well what happened afterwards. The thing I know is that Mr. Mitarakis, who was the minister, competent after the elections of 2019, he created many camps, but the programs of housing refugees in apartments, I think, were phased out. They were
I'm
finished.
sorry?
The program of housing them in apartments.
That
the
was
STIA
phased
program,
out.
I think it was phased out
I mean, after you left or before you left?
after I left.
After you left. But we consider that after March 2016, the influx of asylum seekers dramatically declined with the implementation of the EU-Turkey agreement. So I understand that this program was not continued to help new inflows so much as it was to maintain the initial inflow in good accommodation
Yes,
conditions.
I think you're right. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so that was a very broad perspective about housing conditions of migrants primarily. That was the main question that you were dealing with when they arrived. In terms of work and employment, did you have the feeling that these people were having an impact on the informal labor market in Athens, like street vendors, domestic services, perhaps in construction, or how were they earning a living beside the programs that you mentioned?
Through these channels that you mentioned,
Mostly through
mostly in the black market,
mostly in the black market. Huh?
mostly in the black market. But at the same time, all of our structures of social care, our kindergartens, our medical stations in the neighborhoods were open to everyone. So migrants and refugees, uh, mainly to the documented, but also some structures to the undocumented migrants
As well.
as
Okay.
well.
Mhm. Kindergarten and what else?
Medical offices,
Okay, so for children education and
children
healthcare.
education, and medical care were open to everyone.
I see. And so you mentioned that to earn a living, many were turning to the black market.
That's my impression.
Your impression, yeah. How do you explain that? The Was it a legacy of the economic crisis of Greece, or was it just that the formal labor market was not
Both of them.
accessible
Both
to
these
them?
reasons. Both of them.
So it was still the impact of the big economic crisis. The labor market was not the
The
formal
big
labor
economic crisis, of course, because it favors, black market, and also the legacy of the past, because we had so many undocumented migrants working, in the black market. That's that's not a secret.
Mhm.
Everyone knows it. So, for both reasons, I imagine that is what happened. They were more or less, many of them, absorbed in the black market.
So, as a legacy of economic difficulties of Greece, especially after 2010-11, and other than that, other than these factors, why do you think the formal market, labor market, was not accessible to them? Why did they have to work informally like this, as street vendors in the black market? Why was it difficult for them to get normal jobs?
I can't tell you, but I imagine that it was easier for them to find jobs in the black market because it was cheaper for
For the
for
employers.
the employers too.
I see. I see. And in which sectors did they work in the black market?
I don't.
No idea about that. Okay, I see. And did you have the feeling that, or did you receive some feedback at some point that there was some security concern in the city with immigrants, or especially
There is
undocumented?
always a security concern. Huh? It was before their arrival and even after their arrival. But because many of them were refugees coming with their families, let's say they were more tolerated than individual young migrants arriving alone in the city. They were better accepted, more accepted in that way. But more or less, this preoccupation for security issues, etc., it was always present.
Could you give some examples of concerns?
Yes, you had people complaining whenever you created a center for receiving migrants. In many cases, you had complaints from the neighborhood,
From the
from the
neighbors.
neighbors around there.
What
Now,
type of
if
complaints?
they were mainly not violent, but sometimes, more or less on the verge of violence.
They felt threatened by these people?
I imagine they
Mm.
didn't like it.
Okay, okay. And so you mentioned two types of immigrants: families on the one end that were refugees fleeing the war, and you mentioned also another type which was young male alone. What was the balance between the two types? What was it mainly refugees that you have been dealing with when you were mayor, or was there some balance between the two categories?
As a mayor,
Yes.
I was dealing more with refugees
Mm.
and documented migrants.
So there were fewer of the other kind.
Yes, but as I told you,
Mm.
in some cases, our social structures, food handouts, were open even to undocumented migrants.
But were the two populations present when you were a mayor, or were there mostly the
During my first term,
yeah?
before the crisis, the bigger number was migrants.
What is it you call migrants? The
The-
individual people.
Yes,
Yeah.
individual migrants, not refugees.
Oh, I see.
Not asylum seekers. No, most of them were asylum seekers, the undocumented migrants,
I see.
because it was their way of normalizing,
I see. I see.
their stay in Athens.
I see.
But we didn't have so many refugees before the crisis of 2015.
I see.
So after the crisis, the number of refugees became bigger and bigger.
I see. So you had a pool of individual migrants when already you took office in 2011. And with what changed with the Syrian crisis was this influx of proper refugees from 2015 onwards. You mentioned December 2014. And this is for that second category that the various programs you mentioned at the beginning were created.
Yes.
I see. I see. But at the end of your term, what the category of refugees probably had become more important than the undocumented migrants that were there at the beginning.
More important in what aspect?
Just quantitatively, in the number of people in
I
the
can't
city.
tell you, because in reality, no one knows the number of
No one knows.
undocumented migrants.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Well, what I imagine has happened, first of all, many undocumented migrants left the city during the months when the borders were open.
Mhm.
The border was open, and not only refugees left
Mm.
the country, but also migrants too, documented and undocumented,
Mhm.
because most of them, they wanted to go to the countries of Northern Europe.
Mhm. Mhm.
So once the border was closed, many refugees were stranded.
When was it the border got closed?
I think February 2016.
So late, yeah.
So you had, for some months, you had people crossing the border,
Okay, many left at that moment. Huh?
and not only refugees, but also migrants.
Mhm.
And no one knows how many left, how many stayed.
I see. So there was a big uncertainty about the exact number, but so in
And
terms,
excuse me to
yeah,
tell
please.
you, and once the Eleonas camp was created, we held an opinion survey among the refugees in the camp with a questionnaire. More than 90% of them wanted to leave Greece. They didn't want to stay. And I can understand. One reason is the economic crisis. The second reason is the language. And maybe the third reason is that many of them had relatives in other European countries. So they wanted to leave.
Mhm.
And for many months afterwards, even after the closing of the border, many of them were managing to leave the country through illegal channels and going to countries of, Northern Europe.
Mm.
So in the question of numbers, you can never be sure.
Mhm. 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 I see. So in terms of security, you referred mostly to complaints by neighbors when you created refugee centers. I mean, the main one, the refugee center. Was it the main
Not
aspect?
the refugee. Well, even people who live near Leonas, they didn't want,
Even before? Huh?
even before. They didn't want because they said we are a poor neighborhood, we don't want them here, This kind of xenophobia and racism, which is very present. Right? And even afterwards, in some cases where there were whole buildings where refugees were housed, were lodged there, you had complaints from the neighborhood.
So in the individual apartments that were rented, even then
We had complaints from the neighborhood in cases where more or less there was not a massive arrival of refugees in the neighborhood, but you had a building, let's say, massively, where you had many apartments with
What
refugees.
kind of complaints were there? So it was after this time the refugees had arrived. What
people,
was the complaints?
Representatives of the neighbors coming to the municipal council complaining
About what?
about the refugees. They didn't want them in the neighborhood.
Just they did not like them. They did not have something specific.
Of course, they start all the stereotypes, criminality, etc. But when you start asking, in a more detailed questions, what's happening? Nothing was happening in reality.
Oh, nothing was happening. Okay. So there were tensions in the neighborhoods, but no real criminal problems.
No real criminal problems, and the tensions with the Golden Dawn at that time had ceased because we had the murder of Pavlos Pisas, and the members of Golden Dawn, most of them were in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand, we didn't have violent demonstrations.
I see. And so, looking back at this episode, did you have any? How much do you think it cost the city, the episode, in terms of social services, housing, and how much was
Financially,
how much of the cost was taken by the EU and other actors?
I don't remember.
No idea. Okay.
I don't remember.
But it was not a big impact on the city finances.
Not on the city, because as I told you, the housing was financed by the European Union through UNHCR.
I see.
And the Camp of Leonas was managed by the city, but it was financed by the central state, by the government.
I see. So most of the costs were taken by other actors than the city.
Yes.
And you mentioned as well children education and healthcare services.
Yes, but that was
same.
normal. That was normal.
That was normal.
Something that we did even before the crisis.
Okay. There was not a big spike in expenditures.
No.
I see. Okay. And so what do you think was your most effective action as a mayor about immigration and immigrants? Something on which you really think you have made a difference and you have been successful?
Oh, it's one of the issues that we are very proud of, I can tell you, because we reacted immediately. We offered this piece of land in Leonas. It was not self-evident that you could do it because people were complaining. We organized very well these pool of experts managing the apartments, and one of the conditions that we put to the UNHCR is that we didn't want all of them massively going to some neighborhoods. They have to spread all over Athens and even the region of Attica.
I see.
So I think that despite the fact that we had a massive arrival of so many people, the impact on the city was not very visible. Things went smooth.
Okay.
And I think that the role of the city was the most important in that aspect. And also the fact that we created the hub. This hub where we had the coordination of around 70 NGOs, Greek and foreign NGOs, the region of Attica, the central government, the municipality, everyone working there, coordinating activities and things like that. I think also it was very innovative as a practice.
And this hub was to allocate the funding you were receiving?
No.
Or just to exchange practices?
Exchange practices and...
about how to allocate this funding?
About how to allocate this funding and finding programs, in European programs and other programs, or doing things in common. It was a center of, exchanging many things among all those actors. And you had a clear vision of what was happening in the city.
And what are the challenges that still remain?
One challenge, integration. That is the main challenge. And I'm not very sure that things are going, smoothly towards this direction.
Why?
Because we have no policy of integration. We never had. I can assure you of that from my experience, even as an ombudsman. I follow very closely immigration and refugee issues since 1998. And I have seen no important steps taken towards this direction. And I'm very sorry for that, because we need migrants in Greece. They don't only need us, we need them. And we are not open-minded enough to understand that we have a mutual interest in receiving those people and integrating them.
What kind of integration remains problematic?
Language is a problem. It's a big barrier. And I think integration in the labor market.
As we were mentioning.
In education, in everything. I don't follow very closely because I'm not an MP anymore. But I have the impression that things could move much, much faster. And this government that we have is a conservative government. And a conservative government wanting to appease its electorate. So our our competent minister is a very, very conservative one. And the vice minister who was responsible for the integration of migrants, Mrs. Vultepsi, was extremely conservative. So not so many things have been done in an open-minded direction.
I see. And when you say Greece needs migrants, do you refer to the declining demography in Greece mainly, or to other aspects?
Mostly declining demography is why we need them. But also, it's a good thing to receive new people in your country if you have the right conditions to do it.
All right. Okay. So thank you very much for those insights and this testimony on your experience, your crucial experience, especially in the period of 2015 or so. So what are your projects now? What are you working on?
Well, I'm writing a book on my experience mainly as a mayor, but I am expanding because I write also about my experience as an ombudsman, as an MP.
You're writing your memoir.
In a certain way, I don't like it like that, but more or less it's becoming something like that.
I see.
So, but the most challenging was my experience as a mayor. because those years were very crucial years. And I think that everyone who had, who had public responsibilities during those years, in a certain way should write about what happened in the country. Because many things happened that changed a lot. So now I'm writing my book. I'm working also. I went back to my position. I'm a member of the scientific committee of the Greek Parliament, and I don't teach anymore at the university. But I read a lot. I try to be active.
So you just one last question. You say this period when you were mayor was the most challenging, but you seem to suggest that the immigration issue was well managed. So are you suggesting the challenges were in other issue areas, or were there still challenges in this area of immigration? The mere fact you had to implement all this, but it was a successful challenge.
Being a mayor of this city, and especially during those years, you met challenges in every aspect.
In every aspect.
Because the country went default, when it was bankrupt. The municipality was bankrupt. During our first months, we didn't have even to pay salaries. It was very difficult. Very difficult years, and much violence, a lot of violence in the city, many violent demonstrations.
Yeah, so it was mostly, you refer mostly to the fallout of the financial crisis in Greece, the key challenge and its impact on Athens.
I took office in January 2011, and I left the municipality in the month of May 2019. So it was, all the period of the crisis, except the year 2010.
I see. All right. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kaminis,
thank you so much. I'm
for
very
sharing
happy.
your experience.